Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 207. Shizun, I want to tell you something. Moran opened the door but didn't fully open it. The opening was just a small gap so he could look outside. He saw Xuemeng bathing in the sunlight followed by Shimei who was dressed in a green robe. Xuemeng said, "We brought you some medicine. What are you doing? Open the door and let us in." Moran was silent for a moment and then let go of the door frame. The two of them entered the room. Xuemeng walked to the window and poked his head out to look at the sunset outside. He then pulled his head back and said, "The scenery in your room is very good. There are a few big camphor trees outside my room. They are all blocking the view, so I can't see anything." Moran absent-mindedly said, "If you like it, I'll exchange with you." "No need. I've already put my things down. I was just casually commenting." Xuemeng waved his hand and walked to the table. "Let Shimei apply the medicine for you. The wound on your shoulder from the vines will fester if you don't treat it." Moran's dark eyes looked at Xuemeng. If Xuemeng knew about his past life and what kind of foul soul was hidden under his cousin's body, would he still smile at him and give him medicine? Xuemeng got a bit scared by his stare. He asked, "What's wrong? Is there something on my face?" Moran shook his head and sat down at the table. He lowered his eyes. Shimei stood to the side and said to him, "Take off your shirt. I'll take a look at your wound." Moran was feeling depressed but he tried not to think too much about it. He took off his shirt and said, "Sorry to trouble you." Shimei shook his head and sighed. You don't know how to pay more attention. You don't always have to follow Shizun's lead. Whenever there's trouble, you always run to the front. As a result, you always end up with wounds all over your body. It's hard to watch." As he spoke, he took out the things in the medicine box and carefully wiped Moran's wound, applied medicine and wrapped it with gauze. After doing all this, Shimei said, "Don't drink water for a while and don't move too much either. Those threads are poisonous and the wound it caused won't heal easily. Also, give me your hand so I can check your pulse." Moran extended his arm to him. Shimei's slender fingers were as white as jade. After feeling his pulse for a while, a trace of worry flashed through his eyes. That expression was fleeting, but it was caught by Moran. "What's wrong?" Shimei came back to his senses and said, "Nothing." "Is it serious? Was I poisoned so badly?" Shimei shook his head, hesitated for a moment and then smiled faintly at him. "Just a little bit. Remember to meditate more, or else you'll have some discomfort." As he spoke, he lowered his head and packed up his medical stuff. He then said, "I still have some medicine to pack, so I'll be leaving first. You two can continue chatting." The door closed behind him. Xuemeng looked at the place where he disappeared and frowned slightly. "Why do I feel that he's not in a good mood recently? It's strange, as if there's something on his mind." Moran was not in a good mood either. He said, "Maybe he found out that my life is coming to an end after checking my pulse, so he's sad for me." Bah, don't jinx it." Xuemeng stared at him. "Who curses themselves like that? Besides, I'm serious. Shimei has been in a bad mood these days." Moran got a little concerned. He stopped what he was doing and asked, "Is that so?" "Yes," Xuemeng said with certainty. "Let me tell you, he was in a daze several times before. He only reacted after I called him 2 or 3 times. Do you think he's what? Fallen in love with someone?" Moran. Shimei fell in love with someone? If it was 8 years ago and Xuemeng told him this, he would have jumped up and scolded him out of jealousy. But now, he only felt a little surprised. He pondered about it, trying to remember if there were some clues that could point to this, but he realized that he had paid too little attention to Shimei these past years. He could not come up with anything. "Don't ask me Anyway, I'm not the one he likes. Moran said as he pulled up his clothes and put them on. Besides, it's other people's relationship. Why do you always care so much? Xuemeng was a little embarrassed. He coughed with a red face and said, I don't care. I'm just saying it casually. He stared fiercely at Moran. He stared at the man with a good figure as he put on his clothes. He stared, and suddenly felt that something was not right. He looked carefully again. His eyes fell on Moran's muscular chest and stopped. Moran did not care and said casually, Why are you staring at me? Do you like me? Xuemeng kept silent. Moran still said in a half-dead tone, Don't bother. It's impossible between us. Xuemeng turned his head away with a pale face. He pretended to be calm and said, Bah, you think too much. But his heart was beating like a drum. He saw a crimson crystal pendant hanging on Moran's neck. It looked very familiar. He seemed to have seen it somewhere. He could not remember, but he suddenly had goosebumps. He did not know why, but he suddenly felt a buzzing sound in his head. Where did he see it before? Moran put on his clothes and suddenly found a few stains on the table. He asked Xuemeng, Do you have a handkerchief? Oh, I do. Xuemeng came back to his senses. He took out a piece of cloth and handed it to him. You always forget to bring one. I'm not used to bringing one. Xuemeng said with a straight face, Last time you said that Shizun was going to give you one. Even if you're bragging, you shouldn't brag like that. Only then did Moran remember that he had once begged Chu Wanning to give him a Haitang embroidered handkerchief, but Chu Wanning had never given it to him. He didn't know whether Chu Wanning had forgotten or was too lazy to make one to give to him. He could not help but feel a little embarrassed. He coughed a few times and said, Things had been hectic recently. Shizun has no time. Even if he had time, Shizun would not only make one for you. Xuemeng said with a cold smile, Otherwise, I would definitely be given one as well. Maybe that someone, that Nangongsi would also have one. Speaking of Nangongsi, Moran's bad mood became even worse. Did you go see him? No. I wanted to go and see what he was doing. Xuemeng said, but, he and Ye Wangzi was staying next to that old ghost Jiangxi. I want to be thousands of miles away from that place. I don't want to go there. Moran nodded. It's good that they live there. Although Jiangxi's temper is bad and has a lot of problems, he's still a reasonable person. He probably won't make things difficult for them. Xuemeng said angrily, Him? If that dog of a person is reasonable, I'll take his surname and not be called Xuemeng. I'll just be called Jiangmeng. Moran. Xuemeng was always like this. He was like to make a ruckus and was always making a fuss out of nothing. When his mouth moved, there was no ambiguity when he insulted others. But perhaps it was because he was so noisy that Moran felt that there was more warmth in the room. Only then did the terrifying nightmare of his previous life fade away slightly. Xuemeng said, Speaking of which, Shizun doesn't really want to take Nangongsi as his disciple, does he? Shizun was definitely unwilling in the past. Moran said, But now, even you and I can't stop him. Xuemeng stared blankly. Why? Moran sighed. Let me ask you. In the past, Li Wuxin always regarded Nangongsi. He was clearly an elder, but he never dared to talk back to Nangongsi. Why? Because his father is powerful. He's the head of the #1 cultivation sect in the cultivation world. Does that even need to be said? Very well then. Let me ask you again. Why do people like Huang Xiaoyu and those whose names I don't even know, dare to bully him now? Why is that? Because of enmity. For a moment, Moran was speechless. He thought that only Xuemeng could say something like that. He suddenly felt very envious. He felt that although Xuemeng was already in his 20s, Sometimes he still thought like a child. Like a child was a very subtle description, because the most obvious characteristics of a child were innocence, simplicity, and straightforwardness. But at the same time, it also meant that a person hadn't grown up, was immature and was careless. But for Mo Ran, he felt that even though Xuemeng had lived for 20 years, his eyes were still extremely pure when looking at the world of mortals. This was a miracle. He looked at the miracle in front of him, then said with a bitter smile, "Where did all this enmity come from?" It was because Rufeng sect had revealed a lot of secrets and scandals of the upper cultivation world. Those were revealed by Su Xuanglin. How much could it have to do with Nangongsi? Mo Ran said, "What's more, when those secrets were revealed, wasn't Nangongsi one of the people who was hurt the most? He found out that his father was the one who had his mother killed. He wasn't the instigator at all, but a sacrifice. He was a victim." Xuemeng opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Mo Ran didn't say anything, waiting for him to speak. In the end, Xuemeng just opened his mouth like that. After opening it for a long time, he resentfully closed it again. He didn't know how to refute Mo Ran's argument. After a long time, he reluctantly asked, "Then why do you think the reason was?" "First, it's because they were not satisfied just to watch the show," Mo Ran said. "The Rufeng sect matter is too exciting for everyone to simply watch. Bullying a young master in distress is much better than bullying a little beggar." This was the same as what happened to Xuemeng in his previous life. Back then, when the young phoenix met with disaster, what kind of exclusion did he suffer? Xuemeng didn't know that Mo Ran was aware of it. In order to not offend the emperor, Taxian Jun, no sect was willing to take him in and no sect was willing to cooperate with him. He painstakingly ran all over the world, begging the leaders of various sects, big and small, hoping to take advantage of the fact that Mo Ran hadn't done something even more outrageous and asking them to join hands with him to overthrow his tyranny. That was the first year after Mo Ran declared himself the emperor of the cultivation world. Xuemeng ran around for 9 years, lobbying for 9 years, but no one listened to him. In the end, only the Kunlun Taxiu Palace was willing to give him a place to stay. The only one who was willing to help him was Mei Hangxiu. Mo Ran rejoiced that in this life, Xuemeng didn't have to suffer such humiliation. Xuemeng didn't notice anything and asked, "Then what's the second reason?" "The second reason is that they wanted to show that they were enacting justice on behalf of the heavens." "What do you mean? Do you know what the Tianyan Pavilion, the so-called descendant of the gods, does when it deals with felons of the cultivation world? They show it publicly. They hang them for 3 nights and 3 days. Xuemeng muttered, "Why are you asking me this? It's not like you haven't seen it before. When you first came to Shisheng Peak, there was a serious criminal who was about to be executed. Father also went there for a public trial. Didn't you and I go there with him? You also saw the execution, but at that time you were really timid. After you saw it, you were so scared that you had a high fever. It took 4 or 5 days for it to subside." Mo Ran smiled, and said after a while, "I can't help it. That was the first time I saw a raw spiritual core. What are you afraid of? No one will come and take your spiritual core." Mo Ran said, "You never know. Life is unpredictable." Xuemeng was a little surprised. He raised his hand to touch Mo Ran's forehead. "You don't have a fever, why are you talking nonsense? I dreamed about it. In the dream, someone's sword pierced my heart. If it had been a few inches more, my heart and spiritual core would have been destroyed." Xuemeng was speechless. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Although you're quite annoying, you're still my cousin. If anyone wants to take your spiritual core, I'll be the first to show them no mercy." Mo Ran smiled. His dark eyes were bottomless, and there were lights and shadows in them. The lights and shadows swayed. There were thousands of thoughts running through his mind. Why did he mention to Xuemengs about their past in Tianyan Pavilion? Maybe Xuemeng didn't notice at all, but those faces left a deep and colorful reflection in Mo Ran's heart back then. He still remembered that the case was about a woman in her 20s. She was very young. A large group of people gathered in front of the Tianyan Pavilion to watch the show. There were men and women, old people and children, cultivators and commoners, all sorts of people were present. They were all looking up at the woman who was bound by 3 magical artifacts, the immortal binding rope, the soul stabilizing lock and the demon subduing chain. They whispered to each other. Isn't that Madame Lin? She was just married into a prestigious family. What crime did she commit to alarm the Tianyan Pavilion? Don't you know? She was the one who set the fire in the Zhao family. She killed her own husband. Ah! When the surrounding people heard this, they all gasped. Someone asked, why did she do something this bad? I heard that her husband was very good to her. Amidst the whispers, the master of the Tianyan Pavilion slowly walked up to the execution platform. Holding the case file, she first greeted the people below the platform. Then, she unhurriedly opened the case file and began to read out the crimes of the woman surnamed Lin. The crimes were very long. She read for almost an hour. Basically, this woman surnamed Lin was not the young lady from the family that the Zhao family was supposed to marry. She was just a substitute, a puppet wearing a human skin mask. Her real purpose for approaching the young master Zhao was to murder him because of a personal grudge. The young lady who was supposed to marry into the Zhao family had long become a resentful ghost under this Miss Lin's knife. What a good show of exchanging a leopard cat for a crown prince. The master of Tianyan Pavilion finally commented righteously. However, justice grinds slowly but surely. Miss Lin, it's time for you to tear off your mask and let everyone see your original appearance. The human skin mask was taken off in front of everyone and thrown to the ground like a snake shedding its skin. Under the messy hair of the woman on the platform, another pale and coquettish face was revealed. A disciple of Tianyan Pavilion held her chin and lifted her face up to show everyone. There was an uproar below the platform. Someone shouted, "What a vicious woman! She killed an innocent young lady and ruined the wrong family just because of a personal grudge. Beat her to death. Gouge out her eyes. Dismember her. Cut off her skin inch by inch." The crowd was made up of individual people, but they all had the same head in the end. They were like a sluggish giant beast with a big tail that couldn't be shaken off. They were salivating, shouting and roaring. This ugly thing probably thought of itself as an auspicious beast that could represent the sky, the sun, and the moon, as well as the heavens and the earth. Standing in the world, thinking it was righteous and fair. The screams below the platform became louder and louder, scraping the young Mo Ran's eardrums. He was shocked by the anger of these people. It seemed that the woman who died under the knife and young Master Zhao had become their family, their friends, their sons, and their mistresses. They hated that they couldn't personally seek justice for their family, friends, sons, and mistresses. They hated that they couldn't tear that sinner Lin apart with their own hands. Mo Ran opened his eyes wide in a daze. Shouldn't the Tianyan Pavilion be the one to decide the punishment? Xue Zhenyang comforted him, "Ran don't be afraid. It was decided by the Tianyan Pavilion. Everyone just doesn't like it. They're just saying it. Of course, the Tianyan Pavilion will decide the punishment according to the Divine Martial Realm's instructions. It will be fair and just, don't worry." However, things didn't develop as Xue Zhenyang said. The crowd's screams became crazier and more exaggerated. "This bitch! She killed the innocent. How can we let her die so easily? Pavilion leader Mew. You oversee justice in the cultivation world. You must judge her properly and give her 10 or 100 times the pain. Let her have a good time. Give the punishment she deserves. Tear her mouth apart first, pull out her teeth one by one and cut her tongue into countless pieces. Smear mud on her body. Tear it off after it's dry and leave a layer of skin. Pour chili water all over her body and let her die from the pain. Let her die from the pain. There was even a madam from a brothel who came to watch the show. She cracked melon seeds and then smiled sweetly. Ah, tear off her clothes? Shouldn't this kind of person be naked? Stuff snakes and loaches in her lower body. Find 100 men to take turns with her. That's what she deserves. Honestly, did these people's anger really out of righteousness? Mo Ran was sitting beside Xue Meng at that time. He was more agitated and trembled slightly. In the end, even Xue Zhenyang noticed his uneasiness. Just as he was about to take him away from the spectator stand, there was a sudden bang from the spectator stand. Someone from the crowd threw an explosive talisman at the woman's feet. This was against the rules. However, the people from Tianyan Pavilion didn't have the chance to stop it, or maybe they didn't even want to. In the end, the explosive talisman exploded and the woman's feet were instantly blown into a bloody mess. Uncle! Mo Ran clutched at Xue Zhenjiang's clothes tightly. He was shaking so hard. He was trembling uncontrollably. Good. There was an earth-shattering cheer from below. The heroes were clapping their hands, overjoyed. Good hit. Punish evil and promote justice. One more time. Who threw it? Stop it. The Tianyan Pavilion disciples shouted twice on the platform before they left and allowed the crowd to continue throwing things at the convicted woman. From below, they threw all kinds of things, vegetables, stones, eggs, knives. Those people from Tianyan Pavilion cast a barrier on themselves and stood at the side to watch. As long as what the crowd did would not immediately take her life, they wouldn't stop them. The Tianyan Pavilion's heroic spirit had always been awe-inspiring. They wouldn't go against the righteous crowd. When Mo Ran recalled this, he felt suffocated and didn't want to think about it anymore. He closed his eyes and opened them again. Just wait and see, Xue Meng. If Nangongxi insists on not admitting that he's Shizun's disciple, then he'll completely lose his protection against the cultivation world. After the trip to Mount Qiao, if they really bring Nangongxi to Tianyan Pavilion for interrogation, you'll see the same scene as that year. Xue Meng said, but at that time during the trial at Tianyan Pavilion, everyone was so angry only because that woman killed someone, so with the knife in hand, you can stab however you want, right? Mo Ran's mood became heavier and heavier. There was still the second half of the sentence that he didn't say out loud. In this world, how many people did evil things in the name of upholding justice? They vented the unhappiness in their lives, the violence, madness, and shocking murderous aura in their hearts in this kind of place and situation. After drinking tea and chatting for a while, Xue Meng left when he saw that the sun was going down the horizon. Mo Ran walked to the window and took out the Zhenlong chess piece that he had hidden in his sleeve. He stared at it for a moment, then poured spirit energy into his fingers and crushed it fiercely, turning it into ashes. The wind started to blow, shaking the trees in the surrounding trees. The person in front of the window was also shaking. He slowly raised his hand to cover his face. He felt exhausted. He leaned on the window frame for a long time before he turned and left. He walked into the depths of the room and was swallowed up by the darkness. He sat in the dark room for a long time, thinking long and hard until his whole person felt broken and fragmented. He really didn't know what he should do. He felt that there were some things that he should say, but if he did, things might become even more chaotic and out of control. What should he do? He really didn't know. The more he thought, the more he felt unreconciled. The more he thought, the more confused he felt. He was anxious, he was in pain. He thought about the mastermind behind the scenes who was behind him, holding a knife against his throat. He thought about the Tianyan Pavilion and the twisted way the cultivation world operates. He thought about the woman who was interrogated, her legs badly mangled. Mo Ran paced back and forth in the room like a trapped beast, like a man losing his mind. The shadows of Taxian Jun and Grandmaster Mo appeared on his handsome face, one swallowing the other. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He stood up. He pushed open the door and walked out. It was late at night. Chu Wanning was about to go to sleep when he suddenly heard someone knocking on the door outside. He opened the door and saw Mo Ran standing outside. He was slightly startled. "Why are you here?" Mo Ran only felt that he was going crazy, driven mad by the catastrophe that could befall upon him at any time. He gathered his courage and wanted to open his mouth to explain everything that was too outrageous to be believed. But when he saw Chu Wanning's face, his courage shattered into pieces, turned into ashes, and he became selfish and weak. "Shizun." Mo Ran paused, his voice slightly hoarse. "I can't sleep. Can I come in and sit for a while?" Chu Wanning stepped aside. Mo Ran entered the room and closed the door behind him. Maybe it was because his uneasiness was too strong, so strong that even if he didn't say a word, Chu Wanning could feel the anxiety in his heart. He asked, "Did something happen?" Mo Ran didn't say anything. He silently looked at him for a while, then suddenly walked to the single window in the room and closed it. "I." When Mo Ran opened his mouth, his voice was very hoarse. Suddenly, his emotions surged, fueling his crazy impulse. "I have something to tell you." "Is it about Su Xuanglin?" Mo Ran shook his head, hesitated for a while, nodded, and then shook his head again. The light from the candles was reflected in his eyes, like a poisonous snake with a bright red tongue, twisting and coiling. The expression on his face was too chaotic and the light in his eyes was also very scattered. Chu Wanning was stunned for a while, then raised his hand, wanting to touch his face. But when his fingertips touched his face, Mo Ran suddenly closed his eyes. His eyelashes were trembling, and the jut on his throat moved, as if he had been stung by a scorpion. He turned around and said vaguely, "I'm sorry. Can you put out the light?" Mo Ran said. "I can't say it while I'm looking at you." Although Chu Wanning didn't know what had happened, he had never seen Mo Ran like this before. It made his hair stand on end, as if something that could destroy the world was about to fall and crush everyone standing below. Chu Wanning didn't say anything else. He stood in place for a while, then nodded. Mo Ran walked in front of the candlestick. He stared at the candle for a while, then raised his hand to extinguish the last bit of light. The room instantly fell into darkness. But Mo Ran had stared for a long time. The shadow of the candle still swayed in front of his eyes, from orange to multicolored, from concrete to blurry. He stood in place, his back facing Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning didn't rush him, and waited for him to find his words. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 208. "Shizun, are you sure you want me to hide under the bed?" Mo Ran tried to speak a few times, but all he could do was move his lips. His temples were throbbing with pain. His blood was rushing madly, but he felt that his blood was no longer hot. Instead, it was cold and icy. While he was struggling, even his fingertips were getting cold. "Shizun. Actually, I." He finally opened his mouth. Once he opened his mouth, he only said 3 or 4 words before he became confused and his voice broke down again. Why did he have to say it? Those were all matters of his previous life. He had already committed suicide in Wushan Hall. He had died long ago. He only had the memories of his previous life. Why did he have to say it? Would saying it out loud satisfied his conscience? Was it really the right choice? What good would it do now? Xuemeng would smile at him. Chu Wanning was his uncle and auntie were alive and Shi Mei was still alive. Nothing was more important than these. Even if he had to live with guilt for the rest of his life and be a fugitive for the rest of his life, he did not want to destroy everything in front of him with his own hands. But he also felt that this was something he should say. Now that he could confirm that the person behind this must have been a reborn person, only he could warn everyone to be prepared. This was his chance to atone for his sins. Perhaps the heavens wanted him to die once but retained his memories, so that at this moment, there would be someone who could stand up and stop this impending storm. Even if he had to pay with his life. Moran closed his eyes. He was trembling and his eyelashes were slightly wet. He was not afraid of death. He was someone who had already died once. But in this world, there were things more terrifying than death. He had suffered enough of them in his previous life. In order to escape from those things, he chose to commit suicide. These years, especially after Chu Wanning died in this life, he had been running with all his might, trying to shake off the invisible monster behind him. But now, he was forced into a dead end. Its sharp claws were hanging over his throat. Betrayed by all, cursed for all eternity. He could not escape, he could not escape. Moran cried. Silently, but his tears flowed down and fell to the floor. He tried to suppress the trembling in his voice. He said, "I'm sorry. I don't know how to start. Suddenly, a pair of strong and well-proportioned arms wrapped around him from behind. Moran suddenly opened his eyes. He realized that Chu Wanning had walked over and hugged him from behind. If you don't want to say it, then don't. Chu Wanning's voice came from behind his shoulder. Everyone has their own secrets, and they all make mistakes. Moran was stunned. Chu Wanning actually understood. He already understood. That's right, how could Chu Wanning not see through it? He had seen Moran apologetically admit his mistakes too many times. He knew whenever he confessed if he was scared, sincere, false or unwilling. Although he didn't know what mistake Moran had committed, he knew that Moran must have wanted to confess to something in the past that he didn't want to talk about. Shizun. If that matter makes you very uneasy and you want to tell me, then say it. I'm here to listen. Chu Wanning said, but if you feel that it's very painful to speak of and you find it hard to talk about it, then you don't have to tell me. I won't ask either. I know that you won't do the same thing again. Moran felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. He shook his head slightly. It's not. It's not as simple as you think, it's far more complicated than you could ever imagine. It's nothing like plucking flowers that should not be picked. I massacred people. I made blood flowed like a pestle and thousands of miles of dried bones. I destroyed more than half of the cultivation world. I destroyed you. He broke down once again. I destroyed you, Chu Wanning. Why did you comfort your very own executioner? Why did you comfort a person who stabbed a knife into your heart? Why did you beg me to forgive myself before you died? Why didn't you kill me back then? He was trembling. He couldn't stop shaking. Chu Wanning was in a daze. Suddenly, he felt a warm drop of water fall on the back of his hand. He murmured in a low voice, Moran. I want to say it out loud. Then say it out loud. Moran was very confused. He shook his head and said again, but I don't know how to say it. He had been controlling his voice very well. It was only now that he finally choked up. Really? I really don't know how to say it. Then don't say it. Chu Wanning let go of him and pulled him, making him turn around. In the dark night, he stroked his cheeks. Moran tried to avoid his touch, but Chu Wanning still firmly touched him and held his face. It was moist. It was the tears that had been flowing for a while now. Chu Wanning said, you don't have to talk about it. Suddenly, the fragrance of Haetang was so close. Chu Wanning kissed him. This seemed to be the first time that he took the initiative to kiss Moran. He was shaky and clumsy. He pressed his lips against Moran's, bit by bit. He pried open his bitter mouth and slid his tongue in, stirring and twining their tongues. Chaos, restlessness, madness. Mo Ran also did not know why. Perhaps it was because love was a harbor to escape all pain. Perhaps it was because humans were ultimately the same as beasts. While in the throngs of passion, everything could be thrown to the back of one's mind. In this indulgence of desire, only joy could be felt. It's like the pity that the helpless received, the respite that the desperate craved. Neither man spoke again. As the kiss lingered, Chu Wanning felt Mo Ran's desire for him. It was pushing against him through their clothes. He hesitated for a moment and reached out to touch him. But Mo Ran held his hand and intertwined their fingers. This is enough. He held him in his arms. Only the person in front of him could suppress his pain, could purify his soul. You don't have to do anything else. This is enough. Chu Wanning raised his other hand and caressed his face. For some reason, he felt heartbroken. How could you be so silly? Mo Ran then grabbed his other hand so both of his hands were now being held by his. He pressed his forehead against Chu Wanning's. It would have been good if I was just being silly. Chu Wanning saw that he could not persuade him. He also did not know how to comfort him with words. He could only clumsily caress his cheeks, the tip of his nose and finally gently suck on his lips. When he did this, the tips of his ears were clearly red, but he tried his best to appear calm and at ease. He took the initiative to kiss Mo Ran. He took the initiative to embrace him. He did some things that he was not used to doing in the past. Shizun. Mo Ran dodged, but his breathing gradually became faster under his kiss. You don't need to do this. It's always been you doing these things. Chu Wanning broke free from his hands and hugged his neck. Today, you have to follow my lead. Shizun. Chu Wanning looked at his warm and moist eyes which looked like that of an adorable pleading puppy. He patted the back of his head and actually comforted him with a gentleness that he had never shown before. Good boy. There was no light, so they kissed and caressed against the wall. The kiss went from gentle to intense, from intense to hungrily, from hungrily to lingering, full of lust and urgency. Shizun. Wanning. Mo Ran kept calling his name, beggingly, lovingly, passionately, guiltily. As long as Chu Wanning gave him the slightest bit of love, it would be the strongest aphrodisiac in the world. He finally stopped thinking about it. He pushed Chu Wanning against the wall and pressed against him. He fiercely kissed him and caressed him until the two of them were panting, their hearts beating violently. He was being driven mad. The corners of his eyes were red. Chu Wanning frowned as he kissed him. The light. Isn't it already extinguished? He continued to kiss him, kissing his earlobes and his neck. He heard Chu Wanning resist the desire to moan and whisper in his ear, I meant, light it up. Mo Ran was stunned. Chu Wanning said, I want to look at you. The candle was lit up. The darkness was gone. Chu Wanning's phoenix eyes were bright and clear, stubborn and firm. They were covered with a layer of desire. His cheeks seemed to be frosty, but his ears were red. He said, I want to look at you. Mo Ran suddenly felt his heart hurt so much that he was about to die. How could his dirty, broken, and cold heart continue to live under such eyes? He hugged him, kissed him, and pressed Chu Wanning's hand to his chest, where his heart was beating frantically. He said, remember this position. If I ever did something that cannot be forgiven. Mo Ran murmured in a low voice. The tip of his nose rubbed against Chu Wanning's. Kill me with your own hands. Cut me here. Chu Wanning was shocked. He stared at him in disbelief. Do you know what you are saying? Mo Ran smiled. This smile had the handsomeness and sincerity of Grandmaster Mo but also had the wickedness and madness of Taxian Jun. My spiritual core was formed because of you. My heart is also yours. If there comes a day when I have to die, these two things should only belong to you. Only then can I. He didn't continue. The shock and fear that had never appeared in Chu Wanning's eyes before made him unable to continue. Mo Ran finally lowered his eyes and said with a bitter smile, "I'm just teasing you. I'm just saying this to tell you." He held him tightly. He didn't know how many more opportunities he would get like this. "Wanning. I love you. I want you. I can't leave you." There were many things he wanted to tell him, but just like about the matters of his previous life, he didn't know where to start. Chu Wanning was still in a daze. He didn't know how big of a mistake a person had to make to be able to say something like this. But when Mo Ran kissed him, his consciousness fell apart. He wasn't a person with such weak willpower. Maybe this shouldn't be blamed on Mo Ran's kiss. It was just that he didn't want to think too deeply about it. There was despair in their passion, like boiling oil dripping into a flame. Their entanglement later on became primitive and torrid. Before they even reached the bed, most of their clothes had been taken off. Chu Wanning was pressed down on the bed by Mo Ran. Between the pillows, there was no shyness and awkwardness like the first time they did this. A man's demand for desire was simple and rough. His undergarments were quickly removed. Mo Ran went down on him, kissed him, sucked on him. Once in a while, he would raise his eyes to look at Chu Wanning under the light. His eyes were unfocused and he was panting slightly with his neck raised. How many more times they could be together like this? Twice. Once. He was about to go to Mount Xiao. Perhaps then he would be able to see the person behind the scenes. If that person activated the Zhenlong chess formation, then the only one who could quickly solve the matter was him. But then, everything would come to light. However, during this entanglement, he coaxed his Shizun, as well as himself, who was on the verge of despair. He said that there would be many opportunities like this in the future. They would always be together. Just like how they were now, from night to day, he would bully him as many times as possible. They would sleep in the same position, their bodies still entangled in each other. At dawn, when the sun was rising, he would wake up in his gentleness. They would make love in the middle of the day, would be filthy to the extreme, would love each other to the extreme. Mo Ran held them together in his large hands. He rubbed them together, wanting them to release together. Chu Wanning's phoenix eyes were misty with desire. Following Mo Ran's movements, his mouth was slightly open as he panted. His eyes gradually became confused and blurred. While he was in the height of passion, he suddenly heard someone knocking on the door. Chu Wanning suddenly came back to his senses, the blood draining from his face. Mo Ran immediately covered his mouth, not letting him make a sound. The room was very quiet, but his other hand was still continuously and fiercely stroking, stimulating himself and the person in his embrace. Chu Wanning wanted to shake his head, but Mo Ran's strength was too great. He couldn't move and could only reveal a pair of phoenix eyes that tried to convey feelings of discomfort, pain, and frustration. "Shizun, are you there?" Hearing that voice, Chu Wanning glared at Mo Ran even more angrily. He lightly knocked on the bed with one hand. Mo Ran swallowed his spit, the jut on his throat was moving seductively. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, "Yes, I know. It's Xuemeng." "Shizun." After waiting for a while, there was still no response. Xuemeng muttered, "That's strange. The light is clearly on." "Shizun." It seemed that Mo Ran didn't plan to pay attention to him at all. He was still lying on top of Chu Wanning, immersed in love. The room was dark. He even mistook Chu Wanning's angry eyes for looks of passion. "Shizun." The disciple outside didn't plan to leave, while the disciple on the bed didn't plan to stop either. Chu Wanning couldn't do anything about it. In a fit of anger, he actually bit Mo Ran's finger. Mo Ran felt the pain and moved his hand away. There seemed to be a trace of grievance in his black eyes. His voice was deep and slow. "Your bite hurt so much. You might as well die from the pain." Chu Wanning panted and glared at him fiercely. Then he said to the door, I'm already on the bed. What's the matter? Ah, nothing, Shuemeng said, it's just that I can't sleep. There's something on my mind that I want to tell Shizun. His voice gradually became softer. He could almost imagine the appearance of the haughty phoenix hanging his head down outside the door. Chu Wanning. What was going on? Why did both of them have something on their minds tonight? Chu Wanning was worried. He patted Mo Ran, who was still on top of him, and whispered, get up and put on your clothes. Mo Ran's eyes widened. With a pleading dog-like expression, he asked, you want to let him in? The sound of his voice suggests that there's something wrong. Then what about me? Although Chu Wanning was embarrassed, he still said, take your clothes and hide under the bed. End chapter.